All right, guys, welcome back, iCoach Nutrition VIP members. Guys, today I have a very special guest. Y'all actually had her cousin on here pretty recently, Mr. Chase Chewning. Now we have Miss Claire Chewning joining us today. So, Claire, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Claire, am so glad to be here on iCoach. Get it? As you'll very quickly find, I love puns. I love like cringe-worthy type jokes. So there will be more in store, but just came up with that one.
I love that. Yeah, your podcast name, or I always hear yours truly. Like, I love that.
Right, yeah, so yours truly, and we'll get into this I'm sure here in a little bit, but yours truly is actually the name of like everything that I do. I just kind of apply it to different areas like the podcast, the blog, things like that. It's the name of my business now, my nutrition coaching business. It started over a year and a half ago at this point. I started writing a blog. I was like, one of those 20-something-year-olds that's like, I'm going to start a blog, one of those dime a dozens. But I started signing every letter because I write it in letter format. I still do. I would sign it with yours truly instead of yours truly. So it just kind of came into this whole thing that's just taken over my life in the best way possible now. So that's yours truly. That's me. Yep.
I love that. I love that. And you come from a very entrepreneurial background, obviously with Chase and Max. So just kind of like for the viewers here, just dive into like how did you get started? Like how did you get started? Obviously you went to Ohio State to become an RD and all of these things. But how did you get started just like in the nutrition field in general?
Yeah, so me and nutrition, or me and food, go like way back. I always joke I like came out of the womb holding like a stick of kale and like a peanut butter and jelly. I was introduced to food, or I came to the RD route or the food route through how I was raised. My immediate family is very small. I'm an only child with a mom and a dad. My dad is a chef, not classically trained, but Lord knows he could have been. The food he makes is amazing. So I grew up from a very young age cooking alongside of him. And my mom, I always joke, she is the baker in the family. And I like tried my hand at that, but I realized way too early in the game, which is really predictive of where I've ended up here, that baking had way too many rules. And if you break the rules, if you don't do everything correctly or right, then things don't turn out well for you when you're baking something, right? So I kind of erred more on the side of cooking, learning basic cooking skills, like what foods taste good together, how to pair spices, how to prepare different types of foods. So by the time I reached early high school, I knew that I wanted it to be part of my career in a way that wasn't just the food. So I was like, okay, Claire, you could be a chef, but my personality is not like cutthroat like that. Like, I feel like in order to be a chef, you have to have a part of your personality that is what I don't have, right? That really competitive, that are type of thing. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a chef, but I'm really interested in the science side of food and how food relates to our bodies, how it makes us our best self, how it contributes to how we interact with our outer world, both mentally and physically. So I realized this thing called a dietitian existed. I was like, ooh, sounds cool, right? This is like my sophomore year of high school. So it was pretty early on. I decided like, okay, I'm terrified of chemistry. I don't think I'm going to be that good at it, but I know I want this to be my end game. So I'm going to push through and I'm going to do it. So obviously graduated high school because that's the thing that you have to do to be a dietitian. Then I did my 4-year program at JMU, James Madison, up in like 2 hours south of DC. Then, like you said, I finished up at Ohio State. So all in all, food has been in my life for a very, very long time. But the entrepreneurial side of kind of what I've taken being an RD to has also been in my life for a long time, but it's a little bit of a newer development as far as I'm concerned. I've always known that food was there, but my inclination to being an entrepreneur and creating my own business is something that I realized in my more recent past. So that's kind of how I arrived to where I am and what I do.
That's awesome. So I really want to dive in today because I think a lot of people, in the nutrition space have, we say it all the time, like we're all doing the same thing. It's like the people aren't buying nutrition coaching, they're buying you.
Exactly.
But I think you would argue the way that you go about doing things is a little bit different than what a lot of people are doing out there. So maybe just give us kind of like that 10,000-foot view of like, how do you approach nutrition coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. It's for anyone who hasn't really seen my content or is new to what I do, as you kind of preface there, it is very different and it's not nutrition in the typical sense. I think all of us as nutrition coaches, we all have similar goals for our clients where we want them to feel great, we want them to feel empowered, we want them to feel healthy, but the way that we each choose to go about it, I feel like reflects our own beliefs in some way, shape, or form. So kind of in parallel, growing up, being around food, figuring out that I wanted to be an RD, all of these things, something that was happening in parallel was how I was always raised to eat. So preface here, what I do, I'll kind of like ruin the end of the story here for you, is more of an intuitive and mindful approach to nutrition. I call it gentle nutrition, which I'll describe like what the heck that even means here in a second. But we're all born intuitive eaters, right? As a baby, when you're hungry, you cry, you get fussy. When you're hungry, you turn to bottle, you turn to breast to eat. When you're full, you stop. It's as simple as that, right? It's a simple exchange of eating and stopping. So we don't really lose this ability as we get older. It just kind of gets pushed down or subdued over years and years of maybe engaging in a certain diet or having a negative body image or being told like you have to finish your plate or you can't eat that, right? So we don't lose the ability, it just gets kind of pushed down. But one unique thing I had growing up was I am very, very lucky that I didn't lose sight of this ability too much. And again, I didn't really realize this until a little bit later in life, AKA where I am now, not that old, I'm 23. But I didn't really realize it until recently when I saw like a candy jar in my parents' old house. And I was like, okay, this candy jar has been around for as long as I can remember. I was never told that I couldn't have the candy. Like it was an open candy jar policy, meaning when I wanted it, I could go get it. It was never withheld as a punishment. It was never given to me as reward. It was just candy. So this has really surface in how I coach nutrition now, where it's really an intuitive sense, meaning we level the playing fields with all foods. Food is not clean, food is not dirty, food is not bad, food is not good. Food is just food, right? A Snickers bar is a Snickers bar, and spinach is spinach. They're just different levels of, different combinations of macronutrients, different combinations of chemicals in the foods. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just the food. So with my clients, I level the playing field with all foods, and I bring them into this idea of gentle nutrition. What I mean by this, or the definition that I assign to this, is nutrition that informs but never restricts. So for example, if I have a client who maybe has PCOS or something like that, right? They are more prone to be resistant to insulin. And we know in that case, carbohydrates, it's more important to be aware of what they do for our body, right? And then how to balance that out. So in that case, for example, we would be talking about, okay, what do carbohydrates do for our body? What do fats do? What do proteins do? What does the different types of fiber do, right? And then we balance that into our life in a way that helps us to choose what foods our intuitive self will respond best to, but never from a way of, I have to eat this because my dietitian told me to, or like my mom said that I shouldn't eat that, so I can't. It's really empowering the individual to understand food in a non-diet culture sense of the way. So that's how I approach it. It's non-numbers based, so I don't do macros. I don't encourage my clients to track weights regularly. Of course, many clients will come, as you well know, when you're talking about food and nutrition, a lot of people do come with the goal of seeing a downward trend in their weight. For me, I always say, it is not my place to shame that. It is not my place to tell you that you shouldn't have that goal because it's your body. I don't know what it's like to live there, but it's my place to tell you that in my program, that's simply not one of our main measures of success. So oftentimes what we find by eating more intuitively, using the hunger scale, eating more mindfully, I kind of take them through exercises like that, you'll find that if your intuitive weight is lower than what you are at now, you will see that downward trend, but it's never like okay, Monday and Wednesday, like weigh-in days, I got to see how my progress is. It's really kind of taking the stigma away from that and empowering the individual more through gentle nutrition, movement, and self-love. So kind of went on a rant there, but hopefully that answers your question.
No, I think that was a great answer. And I love that so much. I mean, obviously, I think the thing that people are starting to realize, and kind of how iCoach was, brought upon, was like, we're all completely different, right? We're all
Right.
our own, we all have our own individual needs and wants and blah, 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 right? So to be able to like take somebody and put them in this like cookie cutter template and say, good luck, like obviously that doesn't work, right?
Right.
So I think it's really, really interesting the way, I love the way that you go about it, and we do some of these same practices as well, but like, do you think that you kind of got this philosophy more from your parents and the way that you grew up in the kitchen, or like from the RD route? Because I think like, I'm not an RD, but I got my nutrition degree. I realized about halfway through school that I didn't want to go the RD route. And I had a lot of struggle with some of the things that they were teaching in school and opinions and all of that stuff. So like growing up with your childhood and knowing that your parents really did a great job, it sounds like, with making the kitchen a place like your holy sanctuary, right? Like, I think that's the missing link for so many people, because, most people these days, they don't even know how to cook, right? Like they don't spend time in the kitchen. They eat out for the majority of their food rather than cooking the majority of their food and different things like that. So do you feel like your relationship with food and your outlook and your philosophy was more dictated from your family and your upbringing, or through what you learned in school?
My philosophy as it stands now, and kind of the direction that I've taken my program, 100% most definitely came from how I was raised and what I was taught to be true about food and my own body from a very young age. In RD school, or in the dietetics nutrition coursework, as you well know, since you went through the coursework, it's very clinically focused. It's a lot of, anatomy, physiology, chemistry, like medical nutrition therapy, all of these things that are useful. And looking back on it, I don't regret going that path at all, because I feel like it gave me a well-rounded background of knowledge. Because in what I talk about with my clients now, yes, it's a little bit more habit, mindset, self-speak focused, but I feel like I am more well-rounded and a better practitioner, because if I come into contact with someone who maybe is also managing a chronic condition, of course with the help of their doctor too, but I am able to relate how the mindset piece and how what I'm trying to teach also applies to them, as far as what they need, maybe physically, as far as food is concerned, to be their best self. So the way I'm going now definitely came more from how I was raised, and of course the things that I've self-studied, listened to, people that I've met after even finishing my RD. But the RD background definitely gives me a lot of insight and knowledge to just nutrition as a whole, how to go about researching things. Like, if I ever wanted to work as a clinical dietitian, I could. Like, definitely don't want to do that right now. I totally respect the people who do, but yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, like, again, I think it is the missing link for like so many people, and especially as the years evolve, right? Like, here in 2030, people are going to be eating out even more, like hearing everything about how like foods being like supposedly start to be manufactured, like with meat and stuff like that. Like, I'm just like, what in the world? Like, I would never want my meat to be made in a factory. Like, that's just,
Yeah.
But I think we've, like, as a nation, like, we've gotten so used to the convenience factor of that, and we've gotten farther and farther away from being in the kitchen. Like, my wife and I are about to have our first kid here in 2 months. And everybody asks me, they're like, well, what's your philosophy with like nutrition with kids and things like that? I'm like, well, first off, I don't have a kid yet, so I could have the perfect picture planned out and we'll see how it goes, right? But I was like, I think for me, the biggest piece is like, one, I want to lead by example, right? And two, I want to make the kitchen like the most fun room in the whole entire house, right? Like I want that to be a place where our families eat together, our family cooks together. Like I want my kids to like really love that aspect of nutrition, because if I can get them to like learn how to cook and enjoy it and like know that like, you know, eating healthy or not eating healthy, like it doesn't really matter. It's just that like I want you to be able to like know how to cook the majority of your food. Like I think that's just such a big piece of like your life going forward. Because I'm sure you've seen, like there's so many clients that come to us and they think that, you know, meal prepping on a Sunday is something that takes 8 hours, you know, and it's like, no, like it's just because you're following these hour-and-a-half long recipes every single week. Like it doesn't have to be that way, you know? So I love that. I mean, I think that's such a big piece and such a missing link for so many families.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think I obviously don't have kids. Congrats on almost your first one. But I think if I were to kind of like assign what my priorities would be looking towards my future, if that's a position that I'm going to find myself in, it's, again, like you said, to make that kitchen a sanctuary, make it someplace that's fun, make it someplace that food is a part of discovery and a part of life in a positive way, more than like food is just something that I have to do, or food is something that, you know, makes me fat, or whatever it may be. Because a lot of the times what I also find in talking to clients and even looking back on my own past relationship with food and how I've ended up where I am now, is that we pick up so many things when we're younger from how our parents talk about their own bodies, how our parents talk about food, how our parents maybe even acted around food. Like for example, and this is kind of just getting into the mindset, which is your own body and food in general, but especially for women, I can't speak from the perspective of a man, maybe this happens to men as well, but if you are a young girl or a young woman and you grew up with your mom always like restricting food, or like maybe she would have a piece of cake and then she would be like, oh my gosh, this is so bad, like I have to eat salads the rest of the week, or like I'm too fat to fit in these jeans, like things that were not of malicious intent, right? She was just saying that as a reflection of what she thought about her own body. But that little kid is a sponge absorbing these things, and they're saying, okay, if they're talking that way, or if they're acting that way around food, or if they're not cooking food, whatever it may be, then it's okay for me to say the same things. And even more so, that's how I should be saying things or being acting. So I think that's a really important topic to address for like, not even people who are parents, but just people who have any kind of contact with like anyone younger than them, right? We're all open-minded. We're all sponges to absorb whatever environment that we're put in. So I think it's important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, I mean, so a big reason why I got into the industry, like when I was 18 years old, I started doing personal training, and like I kind of just fell into that. I didn't really know that that was what I was going to be getting to. And then that led to, you know, obviously now it's all nutrition, but I grew up with a family that my mom was exactly that way, right? My mom dealt with, when she was like 16 years old, she lost her mom. And then like a year later, she got hit by a car and she was like in the hospital and all these surgeries and all this crazy stuff. But like growing up my whole entire life, I've seen her, you know, like she's the one that like starves herself all day. And then you'll wake up at like 3 a.m. and she's like freaking crushing the whole cake. Right? Like
Right.
that type of situation. And I grew up seeing that the whole entire, like my whole life. And I grew up on, you know, frozen dinners, like frozen lasagna, Taco Bell, McDonald's. I mean, we just ate crap. And I think I realized from a very young age, I mean like high school, that, you know, the food that I put into my body, especially as an athlete, really determines my performance and how I feel and how I look and how I perform. And so I think it's such an important thing to dig into. Like when we first start working with a client, is like, it's not just about like, what are you currently doing with nutrition, but like, let's dive back all the way to your childhood, because I need to really start to learn like what your life has been like up to this point, who's influenced you, and why it is that you have, you know, these thoughts that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I agree with that. One of the first questions that I'll even ask someone before we agree to work together, before they even sign on, when I just have like a free initial call with them, I'll say, like, what is your definition of health? Or when you envision your healthiest, most empowered, best, quote unquote self, tell me what that looks like. Tell me what it feels like, because a lot of the times you will get answers that are, I just want to be smaller. Or, and it's usually, I say that because that's where our minds go a lot of the time. And that tells me, even from the get-go, like, even if they watched all my stuff, they know I'm not about like weight, they know I'm not about these things, like, just them saying that just is a big indication to me, like, okay, this person has either been raised or spoken to or just been taught over the years that their weight is a defining factor in their worth, or their weight is 100% indicative of their health. And that's just, like you said, a good indication to know, like, okay, where is this coming from? And if it's something that, like, you're not ready to move past right now, or you're not ready to see past the numbers or only the weight side of things, then for my purposes, at least, it may not be the right time for us to work together, right? So it's an important conversation to have, just to figure out, like you said, where their beliefs come from, who they've been influenced by, and is that, like, reversible in a way? Is that mendable, or are they not ready to go to that place yet? So it's an important conversation for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, I mean, like, let's say, for example, like the clients that you work with currently, I mean, what are some of, like, the most, like, when you're going through the initial assessment process and you're diving into these things, like, what are some, well, let me ask this first. Do you find more people gravitating towards you because of the content that you put out and that they're looking for that style of coaching? Or do you have a lot of people that, even though they see your content, they come to you and they still come to you with this, like, very surface level, I want to lose 10 pounds type of goal?
It's usually the former. I would say most people come to me, obviously, after seeing my content, and the thing that usually resonates with most of the people who do come to me are, I've tried it, I've tracked my macros, I've tried the certain diets, and not only maybe have they not worked for me physically, or maybe even they have worked for me physically, right? Like, we know counting macros is a very proven, is a very scientific, and it's a great tool for a lot of people to get to the place they want to be physically, and that's awesome if that's what the person wants. But a lot of the times people will come to me saying, I've tried it, and I was successful maybe physically, but mentally, it did not do me justice, or it wrecked me, or, like, now I'm in this place where I don't want to be living by my phone, by my fitness pal, by whatever diet book he or she was reading before. I want to be able to live how you talk about living, or how you describe in your posts. But every time I've tried, or when I think about trying, I either get way too anxious, way too scared, or, like, I try it on my own and I just fall back into the tracking method because, like, I'm scared that this food has too many numbers or too many calories, or I'm controlled by it. Or it's really kind of people who have passed the line of that modality being helpful for them, and it has kind of become more of a detract value, more of a negative thing in their life than a positive thing, which it was, of course, meant to be, but it's just not there anymore. So that's definitely what they come to me for.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and I think that, I mean, I think with a lot of, especially, like, in kind of this, like, inner circle of a lot of the coaches that we know, I mean, I think that a lot of coaches are digging deeper into more than what most people used to dig into, right? Like,
For sure. Yeah.
the template. I mean, I was just talking to a guy yesterday, and he was like, I did RP, I followed the template perfect for 30 days, and then the holidays just came, and I've completely just fallen off and binged for the last 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, man, like, if I tried to follow an RP template, I don't actually think I would be successful, because I don't want to follow a template every single day of my life. Like, my fitness pal, I hate my fitness pal. Like, I hate logging my food. It's the worst app in the world. I hate it. But if you've never done it before, if you have no awareness around food quantity, if you've never tracked your food or weighed it or any of these things, like, it might be a good thing to at least create some awareness in your life around food quantity, right? But I think it's so incredibly important to not just put somebody in a category and really assess what they need and what they want, and be able to just kind of really meet them where they are in their nutrition journey, and slowly but surely, what was the word you used? Gentle. You gently guide them and evolve them into what they deserve to be, right? Because I never want like food to be the most stressful thing in somebody's life. Like that like makes me want to cry, because that's like, it shouldn't be that way. And it first off, we all have a million other things to focus on in our life, right? So, you know, if you're gonna come to me and I'm gonna give you this prescription, and this is now gonna be the most stressful area of your life, like that would be me failing you as a coach, essentially. So I just think it's so important, and I think like the way that you're going about it it's so interesting, because not only are you addressing it, but that's like your method, like that's like your philosophy, that's what you do. So I think it's just cool to see.
Yeah, one thing that I kind of going off of that is, of course, like I always tell my clients, my friends, my followers, like people on the streets, like literally, I'm not afraid to talk to anybody, right? I will tell them, like, you were meant to do so much more. Like our brains are wired for so much more than just like, what am I gonna eat? How are the numbers going to fit? Like, am I going to feel bad if I eat this? Like, oh my God, I feel guilty. Like I ate this thing 3 hours ago. Now I can't move on. Like sometimes these diet modalities that people get into, and I'm just speaking from experience, like personally, and what I've seen is they go from something that's meant to be positive, like I was saying earlier, and they kind of take it to this place where it's now, like you were just touching on, it controls their life in a way that food is king, right? They give their power to food rather than keeping their power and saying, okay, I know that I need food to survive. I know that certain foods make me feel good in my own body, and I, of course, need to figure out what that is. But what I'm working on, I'm sure what you're working on, what any good coach is working on, is, of course, setting someone up to be the powerful human, right? The one that is in charge of their own choices, not subject to the power of food and what that does to their mindset. One thing I always remind people is like, just deciding if any program is going to be right for you, whether it's mine or whether it's someone else's, just ask yourself, what's your end goal and how do you want to feel? Like when I answer this question honestly for myself, and I talked about this on a story, and I even had someone reach out to me and she's like, your end goal is my end goal. I was like, great, let's work together, right? But my end goal is like, I just want to feel really healthy, really strong, confident, and happy in my abilities every single day. Not even what I look like physically, but just what I have to bring to the table. So I want to feel good, right? And you know, how I want to feel is how I just described. I want to feel confident. I want to feel strong. I want to feel energized. And for me, in order to get to that place, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that I can do that without using any numbers. And I believe the same thing to be true with other people. Sure, can you get to all of those things by using another diet, by using another tracking device? Of course, but I know that you don't have to, and that's kind of my platform, and that's what I do, and I think it resonates with the people that I've come into contact with so far. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like you said, right? Ultimately, like we're trying to empower people to live their best life, right? Like most people don't come to us to get one-on-one coaching if they're just loving life and everything's easy and everything's
Right.
Right? Like they've been struggling with something, and they've probably been struggling with it for a very long time. So like, talk to me a little bit about, you know, it's so interesting, like Precision Nutrition, they came out with this like habit-based coaching certification, you know, so long ago. And I went through both of their courses. And back then I kind of thought about it as, you know, this is a certification, like I need to become an RD to really like coach people in nutrition. But I think a lot of people are falling back into like habit-based coaching, like not just the nutrition, but like looking into like the lifestyle aspects, like your sleep and like all of these different things. Like it's so funny how it's all coming back into kind of like that PM methodology in a sense with habit-based coaching, you know?
Right. Yeah. And that's definitely something that I dive into with my clients. Like, our first like official session that I'll have, like my first questions are never about food, like ever. My first questions are always like, what's your general mood like? Like, I know mood fluctuates, but like, tell me your baseline. Like, how do you sleep at night? Like, what's your general outlook on life? Like, how much water do you drink, right? So it's really kind of getting to know their life and their habits, and like, who do they live with? Who prepares the food? Things like that, so that I can get a better picture, put myself in their shoes, so that when we do get to the part that we're talking about nutrition or maybe exercise or anything like that, that I can make a recommendation or I can help them from a place of being on their level, right? It's not me sitting up on a pedestal being the practitioner, the RD that's like, oh my God, eat 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day because like we know that's good for you, right? It's really meeting them where they're at. And I think in order to do that, you have to ask those habit-based questions first. So yeah, I mean, I think honestly, if a coach isn't doing that, then maybe people need to think about getting a new coach, but that's just my opinion.
They're dropping the ball, right? Because they're trying to go, like the nutrition stuff, we'll get that figured out. Like, nutrition's not the problem. Like,
right, exactly.
The story that you're telling yourself, it's the internal dialogue, it's looking at yourself in the mirror every day and saying you're fat, you're ugly, or whatever it is that you're saying. But it's just so funny how like I feel like a lot of it comes back to like self-sabotage, right? Now, whether that was dictated by their childhood and how they were raised and what they saw, or it's just, I don't know, like bouncing around from a million different diets or whatever it may be. But it's like, and you could, testify to this as like an entrepreneur. Like, I mean, self-doubt, like self-sabotage, like this is stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, like, and I think it's so interesting, like, whether it's like the daily journaling or like a morning mantra or like reading the Daily Stoic or whatever, like listening to podcasts, but like just starting to fill your head with like positivity and like uplifting information and really focusing on like personal development and like just realizing that like there's so much that goes into feeling, looking, and performing good than just the food you eat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I address all the time with my coaching, because especially the route that I go, if it's taking someone who has been using something like MyFitnessPal or like a bad food list and a good food list, if it's taking them from that place and moving them to a place where they do feel truly free with their food choices, the self-doubt and the self-sabotage is something that comes up so often, because no longer are you checking that external source of validity, like that app, like that book, like that, coach, whoever that was. No longer are you checking with them to say, hey, is that okay? Or is this food okay? You are asking yourself, how hungry am I? What do I want right now? What sounds good? What would make me feel best in my own body? And a lot of the times, if that old mindset is lingering or if it's trying to get at you, we get into this thing of like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Like, I have to know how many calories are in this food. And, they revert, or if they're working with me, they don't revert back because I talk them out of this, right? But before people come to me, I find that they revert back and they're stuck in this cycle. That's why in my coaching, I've developed like 3 pillars on which that I measure success with my clients, because I find a lot of people, I definitely have type A tendencies. I think everybody has type A tendencies. So I want to know that I'm making progress in whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's my nutrition, whether it's my business, whatever. But for a lot of people, those markers of progress have been numbers for a very long time. Totally valid. Those are great methods of tracking. But for me, I was like, okay, Claire, you're going to have to come up with some way for people to measure their success or their progress that doesn't involve numbers. So one thing I've done in this realm of like no self-sabotage, positive self-talk, all of these things, is one pillar out of the 3. I call it love fiercely. So you have eat gently with the food, move freely with some sort of exercise that celebrates your body rather than punishes, and then love fiercely. So this is what fills your cup, right? What improves the quality of your self-speak, so that at the end of the day, you can sit down and say, okay, cake sounds good. I'm confident that if I eat this cake, it won't wreck my mindset. It won't wreck my mentality. But a lot of the times, in order to get there, we have to put other tactics in place to help fill your cup, right? To help make you that more competent and confident individual, so that when you go to have that piece of cake, when you go to interact with another individual, when you go to your job, your family, whoever it is, you can give the best version of yourself. So like you were talking about, a lot of the times this is talking about meditation, or like, listen to a podcast or do something to increase your mental strength, because your brain is similar to how you train your body, right? You can't expect to do something new for one day, like eat gently, right? And expect it to feel nice. Like, I didn't go into the gym the first time I ever lifted weights and tried to lift what I lift now, because I would have been like, screw this, I can't do that, right? So it's really training your brain every single day through this love fiercely component, so that all other areas of your life will continue to improve as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that, you made a great point there. Most people, if they're coming to us at 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever, you're combating 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? So it's you can't expect, we talk about nutrition and lifestyle coaching. Well, you can't expect to change your lifestyle in 30 days or in a month or I guess that's 6 months or even a year sometimes. It takes time. But I love kind of comparing it. I'm sure you watch Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks about how he has the best EQ in the world, right? Yep. So for me, school, I was dyslexic, I had ADHD, all this stuff. And school for me was really, really, really hard. I always thought I was stupid in school. But I've always had a really good idea of, or resonating with people, kind of that EQ side of things, just kind of meeting people where they are and being empathetic to, look, I don't know the life that you've lived, and everything that you've gone through in your life has led you to this point. With me, I've gone through so many, I've had to overcome so much adversity and so many obstacles that I feel it really allows me to, kind of, our tagline is empathetic problem solver, right? So it's I'm always going to meet you with empathy, and as soon as we start building rapport and relationship and all that, yes, I'm not afraid to nudge you a little bit if I need to, right? But I'm always going to meet you with empathy first before, I try to go into anything else. So I love that route, and I want to go into how are you tracking that? So one thing we have clients do every single week, and I'm sure you've heard from Jason and all them, biofeedback, I think he calls it, right? So every single week it's tracking sleep and digestive and mood and energy and sex drive and workouts and all that stuff. So what are when you start with a client and you're not looking at the scale and those things, what are some of those metrics that you track to make sure that people are seeing improvements?
Yeah, of course. So in that kind of 3-part foundation that I just mentioned, the eat gently, move freely, love fiercely, that kind of is the framework that guides our goal setting process. So what I always tell people, at the end of our first session, we'll set 3 goals, right? Then if we talk 2 weeks later, the idea would be hopefully those 3 things that we set would be a little bit more habitual. Are they going to be totally normal and totally habits yet? Probably not, but hopefully you will have gotten into a group with them where you can be comfortable or feel comfortable adding on 3 more things, 1 in each category. So theoretically, at the end of however many months that we were to work together, you would have compounded progress. Kind of in between checking in to track progress, I work on an app that's a health provider client type of app that allows them to take pictures of their meals and kind of post them in a newsfeed just between myself and them. And we're not looking at the calorie content of this meal, obviously, but we're looking for things colors, textures, how satisfying was this to you? Tell me your pre-meal hunger and your post-meal fullness. It also has a place to log your emotion associated with the meal. So if someone tagged that they felt sad after this meal, or maybe on the flip side, they felt confident, right? That gives me the trigger to go in and leave a comment and be like, hey, walk me through what was happening here, so that, in between our sessions, it doesn't just build up over a week or 2 weeks of not chatting, right? But I can kind of talk with them more or less every single day to just kind of see where their mindset is at, see where their choices are at, see where their water intake is at, things like that. And then of course, when we have our actual I say face to face, but they're like camera to camera check-ins. Then I have like a Google Doc that they'll fill out to kind of like, what were your wins? What do you need to work on? Obviously, like your sleep, did you have any GI issues? Kind of the more clinical things like that. So I can just kind of look over and see that nothing is going totally awry or totally wrong, but it is looking at it more from that qualitative sense of how is your emotion over the week? How are you feeling? Rather than, okay, did you hit your calories every single day? So it's definitely been something that I've learned as I've gone throughout it, and we add to it, and I'm happy with where it is right now for sure, but it's not something that just like happened in one day when I was like, yes, this is the way that I'm going to do it. It's definitely evolved over the past couple months for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it will continue to evolve. That's what
Oh yeah.
does, right?
Right, for sure.
So one thing I want to dive into, and I'm sure you've had this. So I've actually had clients that have, and again, like it's something that's really sad when I hear something like this, but I've had clients where, we start to look into like sympathetic and parasympathetic stressors in their life. Well, obviously in Western civilization, the sympathetic side is full and there's like nothing over here, right? And
right.
So I ask the question, I'm like, how can we start to create some balance in those areas? How can we start to add more of those things, that make you happy, that make you feel good? Like, and we try to start identifying what those things are. But I've had quite a few clients where I'll ask that question and they'll say, Justin, I know this sounds kind of bad, but like, I don't know what makes me happy. Like, I don't know like what fills my cup. I don't, especially moms, right? Like I hear this all the time because they're like, they feel guilty about prioritizing their own self because they feel like they need to prioritize everybody else, their husband, their kids, whatever. I'm sure it's with males too, but I see it a lot in female. That's the majority of our clients are females. So what would be, and I know this would be individual to the person, but how would that conversation look like? Like, how would you dive into that?
Yeah, I love this question because this is something that I see a ton as well. This definitely falls into like the conversation that I would have with a client around that love fiercely component of my coaching. And like you, I see this mostly in females. I'll say most of my clients are female. I have worked with a couple males in the past, but I find that more often than not in my messaging and what I'm kind of speaking to is more largely well received by the female population. But what I find is exactly what you said. Everything else is easy, right? We've identified like, okay, like I'm going to add a different color to my plate. Like we know what we're going to change with the food. We know what we're going to change with an exercise habit. But when we get to this, it's the same kind of conversation. It's like, well, Claire, again, I don't really know because I'm so busy taking care of everyone else all the time. And I feel like, especially as females, and again, I'm sure this happens with males as well, but I think it's put in our minds from a very young age that in order to be a good daughter, in order to be a good girlfriend, a wife, a mom, whatever it is, that your value is placed on how well you take care of other people, rather than your value is like, how good can you take care of yourself so that you can go and in turn take care of other people. So what I approach this situation with is like, okay, totally understandable that that's where you're at right now. Like that is not your fault because that's simply probably the messaging that you've just been exposed to. But let's approach the conversation from the angle of when you just like have a day, just like pretend that you had a day to yourself, no responsibilities, like no kids were around, your husband wasn't around, like whatever it is, you just had a day. What would you do in that day? Like if time, if money, if all of this was no object, what would you do that would make you happy? Right? And there'd be like a list of things, right? Like, oh, I would read, I would like go to gym, I would take a walk, I would go to the spa, like whatever it is that she would do. And I say, okay, like what are a couple things within that list that you can make time for, even if it's like 5 minutes over the course of a week, even if it's 10 minutes, because I hate the excuse. I don't like to use the word hate, but I do hate this. When people say, I don't have time. I'm like, oh, really? Let's reframe that and let's say I don't make time and then see what you're making time for. Because I guarantee you probably make time to maybe look at this thing. You maybe make time to, I don't know, watch television, whatever it is. How can you take 10 minutes away from that block of time that you're making time for and dedicate it to this part of your life, something that you just told me was going to make you happy. Because here's the deal. If you continue doing these things and not making time for this whole list of things you told me, like, what does that say about where our priorities are, right? Because if you can't prioritize yourself, if you can't make time for you, then none of this is going to be able to work. Like, the food isn't going to matter, the exercise isn't going to matter, because like, you mentally will not be here. And that's the most important thing. So I almost argue that this conversation and this part of coaching is more important, at least starting out, than the food piece, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, yeah, I love that approach. I mean, I think that like, it's almost like just reminding people what they actually love, like reminding people what are the things that actually make them happy. Because if they've gone, you know, whatever, like they got like, so my mom, for instance, like and I think this is why I resonated with so much, because I saw it. Like I saw it growing up,
Right.
right? So like I was an only child till I was 8. Then my parents tried to have kids the whole time. They couldn't. Finally, they had twins on Christmas Eve. They were in vitro babies. And then 1 year later, they had another one just randomly, right? Funny how that works.
Yeah.
But, you know, like my mom, and I love her to death. She's the best mom in the world. But like from a very, very young age, all she wanted out of life was to be a mom. Like she had no aspirations for a career or anything. She wanted to be the best mom ever. And I think that's like amazing. Like it's hard for me to understand, just because I really love like business and stuff like that. Like I'm very career driven, but my mom instilled so much confidence in me from like a very young age. And, you know, I think that it's just like one thing I try to talk to her a lot about now is like getting her to kind of think back, like maybe it was in her, you know, 20s or in her teens or as a kid, like, but like, I know it's been so long since you've done something for yourself that makes you happy and you almost forgot what it's like to do things for yourself. But like, what were those things? And it might even go back to like her as like a teenager, like dancing or like riding a bike or whatever. But it's so interesting. I mean, I could rant on it all day, but it's, I don't know. I think I have a lot of empathy just because I saw firsthand how my mom's life was affected. And so I don't know, I guess it just allows me to empathize more with that, because like all I've ever wanted is my mom to be happy. Like I hate seeing her do it, like those things like binging and like all that. Like I hate seeing her eat cottage cheese and wheat thins all day long and starving herself. Like it just, and it's hard for me because it's like, here I am and I do what I do and I help so many people, but yeah, I can't help my own mom, you know?
Right.
So that's been one thing that's like really been hard for me, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's like a trademark of a good coach. Like, you know, your tagline, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it has the word empathy in it, right? Empathetic. And I think that is an important part of being a good coach, to be able to try to empathize, even if you've never been a mom. I've never been a mom, but I can try to empathize, put myself in their shoes and say, okay, well, what is this person actually feeling and how can I meet them where they're at so I can try to help them? And I think one of the biggest things why coaching is so powerful and so important, and like why I invest in coaching, even though I am a coach, why you invest in coaching, even though you are a coach, is a lot of the times when we're so caught in our daily lives of like being a mom, being, you know, a daughter, a girlfriend, a husband, like whatever you are, a business owner, even if you kind of take it into the entrepreneurial realm, unless we have that kind of like more or less third party that isn't in our lives every single day, we don't really have that person as much to ask us like, well, okay, like when you do take time for yourself, what do you enjoy doing? And it's not that the people who are in our lives every single day don't care about that. I think it's just, again, the selfish part of human nature is we're all to an extent so caught in what we are doing on a daily basis, and our to-do list, who we need to take care of, what we need to do for business, what we need to do to generate more income, that unless we have that person checking in on us and saying, well, what did you do for yourself today? What does make you happy? Like, you remember, like, you got to take time for yourself in order for everything else to work. Like, that's the power of coaching, because even though I am a coach and I encourage my clients to do this, a lot of the time I have to like sit back and take a shot of my own advice and like hear my coach's voice in my head that's like, okay, I encourage my clients to do this today, but I didn't do this. So it's like really kind of building that self-awareness in parallel with trying to help them do the same thing.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, I don't know how much you know about like my story, but like 3 years ago, I like competed in CrossFit for 3 years and like qualified for regionals, so I competed at a higher level. And at that time, I'm training 3-4 hours a day. Like, I'm eating like 5,000-6,000 calories a day. Like, I'm really, really training, right? And
right.
Like once I decided that, hey, like, I'm not going to compete anymore, I'm going to go all in on now building a business. It's been very interesting, that shift, because I used to work out 3-4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And now I work out I basically work out the same amount in 1 week as I used to in 1 day, right? And my calorie intake, basically went from like 5,000 or 6,000 like over a year, and like all the way, like now I take it maybe like 3,000 or 3,500 or something like that. But it was a huge shift. And one of the reminders that I think that I've learned over this last 2-3 years is that like my health is my greatest asset, right? So like, even though, that was like my number one focus then, and that was like where all my attention was when I was competing. Well, now that that isn't my number one thing that I'm focusing on, like it's very interesting trying to still find balance and realize that like, just because you're trying to grow a business, like you still need to go work out, you still need to get sleep, you still need to eat healthy, like you still need to do all those things, because just because you're a coach doesn't mean that you can just, wing it and go throughout life and everything's going to be perfect. Like, in fact, we give so much, sometimes we forget to give for ourselves.
Yeah. One thing I encourage myself to think, as well as other people, like, think of all the things that you do on a daily basis, like your work, your job, your kids, whatever it is that you pour time into, and think about like, what's the common denominator in all of those things? That common denominator is you. So like, if you're not there, if you're not healthy, if you get sick, if you, I don't know, if something happens to you because you weren't taking care of yourself, then none of that can go forward. And that's a conversation that like, I don't say sitting on a pedestal. I'm not like, take time for yourself, guys. It's like, I say that to simply remind myself that like it's true and that I need to hear that too. So taking your own advice is always the hardest thing, I think.
Well, I mean, if we think about it, like if, like, especially like for what we do, it's like, if I'm not my best self, then I'm not going to be able to help move other people forward, right? Because
absolutely,
like, and of course, like we all have our own struggles, but like if we're not prioritizing our own health, if we're not prioritizing the things that we need to grow and learn and develop and be able to serve others, then eventually we're not going to be able to continue doing it. And so I think it's a great reminder for everybody. That's why I'm such a big, I say it all the time, like coaches need coaches, right? Like just because you're a coach doesn't mean anything. Like I have a nutrition coach, I have a business coach, like whether it's just for accountability or maybe it's just to talk to somebody for 30 minutes, every 2 weeks to just maybe remind me to focus on me, right? Like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But I think that coaches need coach. I think everybody can benefit from a good coach, a great coach. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So when you dive into like, you said, hey, let's try to find, some time in the week to do things for yourself. Are you, and this might be something that kind of evolves, but are you a big believer in trying to get into like daily practice? Or, because like, for example, like if you had somebody do something maybe just once a week, do you feel like they start to become consistent with that? Or do you try to get in maybe like even a 5-minute daily practice?
Yeah, for sure. I personally believe in the practice of daily routine and making things that you foresee being beneficial for yourself a daily habit. So like for me personally, I always start my day in a similar way, like away from my phone, just kind of chilling by myself. I always end my day in the same way. For me, that's become a habit. For my clients or people that I'm having this kind of discussion with to figure out what does make you come alive, what does fill your cup, all of these things. Of course, in an ideal world, I would love to take whatever they offer up in that discussion and make it a part of their daily life. That's never usually the place that we start. I'll use like meditation, for example, right? Because some people are open to it, and I'm a yoga teacher as well. So it works really well that like I could even like give them the basics of that or walk them through like a 5-minute session. But some people vibe with that, some people don't. But the people who do vibe with it, I find that like even myself, like I've been teaching yoga for years, like have been meditating more or less for years. Like I can't even still make it happen every single day. So I never want to like put it on someone where it's like, okay, we know this is beneficial for you. We're going to do like 5 or 7 days out of the week and see what happens, right? Would that be awesome? Sure. But I find that for most people, starting out with whatever kind of time limit or day limit they want to set, whether it's like 2 days a week, 3 days a week, is more beneficial because they start to figure out, I do feel better, or I do like this. And I think whenever you figure out something for yourself, it's much easier and you have a higher level of motivation to apply that to more days, more frequently, more often than me saying, this is going to benefit you so much, you should do it 5 days a week. So I think we always start small, and then the goal, of course, is to expand on that and make it more of a daily habit. But that's just something that we work up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a really interesting point to look at. Like I always say, a lot of people don't actually realize how good they can feel because they've never felt that way before, right? And so I think like for a lot of people, like let's say for instance, like you've been extremely overweight your whole life or whatever, like when somebody says, hey, eat until you're 80% full, or hey, like eat intuitive, like I feel like they don't really know how to grasp that or what that even is, just simply because like, whether you want to dive into like the hunger hormones or whatever, like what do you find? Like, so let's say for instance, somebody came to you and, they have been struggling with their weight for a really, really long time, but like severely overweight. Like what would be maybe an example, and again, individual, but like maybe some differences in somebody that's coming from a place of like really, really, really needing to make like a huge lifestyle change, like whatever, like 300 pounds versus somebody that comes to you that maybe they're not struggling with weight. They're just more so struggling with the relationship of like, I don't know, their relationship with food.
Mm-hmm. So the latter scenario is something that I see way more often. Of course, a lot of the clients who do come to me, their main goal is usually improve my relationship with food. Sure, do some of them have that kind of residual goal of, I want to see a downward trend in my weight? Sure, but none of them are at a place, none of my current ones and none of the ones I've had in the past are at a place where it's like their life is like in danger from their weight. So I've never been faced with that scenario. If I were to be faced with that scenario, first of all, I would figure out like, am I the right person for you at this point in your life, right? Like, do you need to pursue other measures and maybe come back to me? Or like, are you more or less stable? Like maybe, because we know some people, even if they are very overweight, that doesn't always show up in labs and in, how their health is inside. I mean, a lot of the ways it will, but sometimes it doesn't. So maybe if all of their other biomarkers were okay, our first conversation would be like, okay, like, how did we get to this place, right? Like, are you even realizing that you're eating a lot of the time? Like, what kind of foods are you eating? Are you a distracted eater? Are you a mindless eater? Are your foods like totally just like non-nutrient dense at all? It's like, how did you get there? And then we're going to kind of strip away what you've learned to be true about food little by little, right? So our conversation at first, it would never be like, of course, like caloric reduction, like minus 500 calories a day, but it would be more of, we're going to talk about the hunger scale and we're going to discover for you what it means to feel hungry. And of course, they may be at a place where those intuitive cues are kind of skewed, right? But we're going to talk about like right now, what does it feel like when you're hungry? What does it feel like when you're full? Do you eat emotionally? Like when are you reaching for food? So kind of more an awareness of your habits and when you are eating and to what extent you are eating. So then we can kind of lay out that initial roadmap of what we need to start with first, because a lot of the times it's not starting with like cutting out certain things. It's maybe going to be like, if you are an extreme emotional eater and you just find yourself at night like so down in the dumps eating bags and bags of chips or whatever it is, like odds are like what else do you need to address? And again, this may be out of my scope of practice, but what else do you need to address that you're trying to cover up or fill the void with that food, right? So I think it's more identifying what got them to that place and if I'm the right person for them, and then moving on from there. Does that kind of answer your question?
Absolutely, that makes sense. I just hear it all the time, you know, they're like you'll work with somebody for a few months or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, like I just never, like, I don't think I ever realized what it felt like to feel like this, because I've, you know, my whole life I've ate this crappy food or whatever, and so like, you know, I just, once I started eating whatever, like more vegetables and fruits, like I just started feeling better, and like I haven't ever felt that before, you know, and so it's just, I think it's just such an interesting conversation, because it's like, for me, it was the same way, like growing up through elementary, middle school, high school, I ate like the crappiest food you could possibly eat. I got sick, like there was 1 year I got strep throat 12 times in 1 year. Like I used to get sick all the time because I was eating crap all the time. Like when I went to go play football, my bulking up for football was me eating 5 chicken burritos from Taco Bell per day. Yeah.
Good.
I was working at like Walgreens at the time, like making like $300, you know, a paycheck, and I was spending like $300 at the supplement store, right? Like just, it's like what you don't know, right? So I think it's just, I think it's always such an interesting conversation. It's like, if I can get people to like realize what feeling good actually feels like, then it's motivation for them to want to keep some of those practices into place, because we all want to feel good, right? Like we want to wake up every single day like ready to like take on our day and like go crush life. But a lot of the times we wake up and like life just kind of crushes us, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one of the main things that I do in order to help my clients feel like what it actually feels like to feel good is I walk them through in one of our first handful of calls as a mindful eating exercise. This is something that I truly believe in, because earlier you were talking about like everyone's kind of stuck in like that sympathetic, like go, 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 like I got to do all the things, right? And we don't ever take the time to slow down and rest and digest, as the other would say, our food. So with mindful eating, it's kind of having a non-judgmental awareness about your plate. And I always tell them to bring to that session like one type of food that they typically either reach for in that emotional moment or they feel like they have no control around. So for a lot of people, it's like chocolate or chips or something very satiating like that. And we really walk through like, when you actually pay attention, no devices around, no distractions, when you pay attention, when you listen to the food, when you're not like for it to speak to you, but like, is it crunchy? Like, is it soft? You know, what does it taste like? What does it look like? Like, describe that food to me as if I've never tasted it before in my life. Like it's very small, and you're probably thinking, and anyone else watching is probably thinking like, this girl is a whack job, right? Like, of course I've looked at my food before and like listened to myself crunch it. But a lot of the people, what I found from personal experience, they come back to me because at the end of coaching, I'll say like, what was the most impactful thing for you? Like, give me feedback. And they're like, oh my God, the mindful eating piece was so impactful because I never truly realized what I felt like after eating a piece of candy, or I've never felt satisfied after eating 2 pieces instead of 10, or I've never felt my fullness because I've been so distracted doing other things when I eat. So this is kind of a follow-up answer to previous questions. Like a lot of people, like you said, have no idea what it feels like to feel full, feel hungry, feel satisfied. And by walking through this exercise, by making a goal to maybe do it like once a day, once every other day, however often you can fit it in, you can really start to revolutionize how good you feel and how you are in relationship to the food that you're eating.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but you know, you hear like how many times we should actually chew.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, next time, like if it's candy or fast food or like whatever it is for you, like next time you have it, and you don't have to do it with anybody, it's probably going to be a little awkward, so maybe just by yourself, but like take that bite and chew it 30 times before you swallow, and like taste it, like with Coca-Cola, right? Like I do this all the time with soda. It's like take a drink of that, and obviously you're not chewing it 30 times, but let it sit in your mouth for 30 seconds and taste those chemicals, right? Like, and I don't tell them that, but I'm just like, you know, taste, like actually take a second to not just, you know, like be on the rush and go and like stuff your face like while you're driving, but like take a second to sit down and chew the food 30 times or let it sit in your mouth and just like just try to figure out like what those senses are for you. And a lot of the times they come back and they're like, I have never tasted like chemicals in my Coca-Cola before, but when I did that, like I tasted chemicals. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you know, like most of us we don't chew our food 30 times or wait 30 seconds before swallowing. So I think that's a phenomenal practice. So do you do, like when you do that, will you try to target their like troublesome food, or will you just have them do it with any meal, or how would you kind of approach that from the beginning?
Yeah, so in the exercise itself, I have them do it with the troublesome food. So like I've had clients bring like little candy bars to our session, and for me, I do it over video chat. So like they feel a little bit awkward because I'm like watching them eat this thing and they take like 5 minutes to eat a candy bar. I'm like, it's fine, no judgment, right? I'm clear, it's fine. But yeah, I typically tell them to bring a food that they have a lot of issues with, but the same construct that we build in that call, the tactics that I teach them, what I take them through, it's like a general framework that you could apply to literally any eating session. It doesn't have to be only when you emotionally eat or only at breakfast. Like it could be to any meal throughout the day. And this is one of the main reasons or main ways that I'm able to help level the playing field, as I call it, with all foods with my clients, because I'm like, I'm not telling you to not eat a piece of candy if that's what you want, because odds are you're going to spend more mental calories, more mental energy thinking about it if you don't. So my challenge for you is to eat it, right? But maybe pick up a handful less than what you would normally do, and then sit there, look at it, like have a romantic experience with this food, like look at it, take it in, notice how you're feeling. And then one, you might get bored. Like if you eat your regular portion, because it's literally going to take you 30 minutes, right? Where it used to take you 5. And 2, you might feel mentally and physically way more satisfied since you paid so much freaking attention during that first session that like you realize that you don't really need the rest of them. And here's the thing, since all foods are even, like since I'm not telling you you can't have it tomorrow, or you're not telling yourself that story, you can go back and do the same thing tomorrow. So the need to binge is much less, or the motivation to do that is much lower, because there's no restriction, there's no like portion, right? It's just pay attention. That's the only stipulation.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I just thought of it while you were saying that. I was like, what if you had somebody like take that favorite meal or food, take it on a date, just you two, right? And so like,
yeah,
go to your restaurant or whatever. Like I like love Mexican food, right? So like, let me go to that Mexican place and like have this meal, and like let me date that meal, and like let me take that time with just me and that meal and just see like how I feel, you know, like. With alcohol, like I think it's a very similar thing, you know, like, and again, I think it's, you know, staying in our scope, right? But like, I think a lot of these conversations as coaches, we really can't shy away from. Yes, we need to stay in our scope, but like, we're starting to realize that like, this is so much more than just food. It's so much more than just nutrition. Like, I'm sure you've studied like psychology probably way more than you ever thought that you would getting into this, right? Like, I think that's such a big aspect of the whole process and the relationship with food and just really your mindset towards life in general. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one thing we do too, because a lot of people don't like logging their food on MyFitnessPal, and I say, yeah, I agree, I don't either, right? So, but the picture log, like I love doing that. And when you talk to clients and you have them do that, do you feel like, do they give you feedback that, obviously when you have to send your coach like pictures of your food, like I'm sure just doing that maybe sometimes makes them think about what they're putting in their mouth. Like, do you get that feedback?
I've gotten it a handful of times, less than you would think. What I like when I sign on a new client before we have our first official session, I like them to download the app and start doing that at least like 3, 4, 5 days before we even hop on the phone. And I tell them, like, you know me from my content, from the way we're talking right now, like I'm not a dietitian who's ever going to tell you like, should you really have eaten that? Or like, think twice next time, right? So like, I'm so non-judgmental about that stuff, and I try to make that really clear from the beginning that in order for me to best help you and for you to get the most value out of this program, I need you to just act as if nothing is different, especially until we have that first call. And then once we do have that first call, like act as you would. And then if, because you covering up something or not putting something on there because you don't want to offend me or you're afraid what I'm going to say is like literally doing you no good. Because even if you were to tell me like, oh my gosh, I had this milkshake, for example, and I felt super guilty, right? The fact that you told me that gives me a window of opportunity to insert a tactic for you to not avoid the milkshake next time if that's what you really wanted, but avoid the mental anguish that comes after. So I find that most people really get that and they understand it. But maybe for people in the future, as I continue to go, I'm sure that's something that's bound to come up. But as of now, it's not something I've faced a lot.
Got it. Yeah, and I always preface it with like, look, like there's no judgment over here. Like, especially in that first week, like if we're doing some type of like assessment with, like if we're going down, like let's say people don't have any of these negative relationships with food and we are assessing food quantity. One of the things, well, food quantity and food quality. So we'll use, I'll have them like use MyFitnessPal to track the quantity side of it, but I'll have them do the food picture log as well. And that way, obviously I can learn a lot of things from that. But I always tell them, I'm like, look, like there's no judgment over here. Like I need an honest assessment of what your eating looks like, right? And so I think as long as you preface it with that, like it doesn't, they at least don't take their mind to that place. But I do hear sometimes they're like, yeah, like, when I had to go and take a picture of something I was eating, it definitely kind of made me like second guess if I even wanted it in the first place. It was, like I guess eating out of habit maybe didn't happen as much type of thing.
Which is like a positive side effect of coaching, right? Like if you were just eating something out of habit and you realize you didn't really even want it anyways, then like, great, that's one less thing that we have to tackle simply because you're taking pictures. But it's usually not an issue because people realize like the more I tell my coach, the more they'll help me. So yeah.
Well, and I think again, that's such a missing link for so many coaches is what does that first month or those first few months look like? Like I have to build a relationship with you, my client. Like we have to build rapport. Like you have to feel like we're on the same team because I'm not a drill sergeant. I'm not here to judge you. Like I am a very imperfect human being and like I have all my own problems too, right? All my own struggles. Like I'm only here to help you and that's all I'm here for. So as soon as you can start to build up that trust, I think it's one of the biggest components for sure. So, all righty, girl, I could probably ask you questions all day long. I want to respect your time. But like, if we just sum everything up and for the viewers that are watching, if you said, hey, here's like 3, mindful like practices that maybe you could go and implement into your life this week and just try it out and see if you like it. What would be like maybe your top 3 most common kind of gentle nutrition practices that you work with people with?
Yeah, I would say the first one for sure, like doesn't really even have to deal with changing your habits or what you put in your mouth. It's just like, try your best. And again, the brain is like a muscle. You have to train in order to get better at it. So this isn't going to work if you just do it one time. but just start to notice all of the messaging that you see around food in the media and magazines and books from people, whoever it is. Notice if it's coming from a place of food negativity, meaning the moralization of food, the sinful, guilt-inducing, good, bad, clean, ugly, whatever. If people ever call food ugly, I don't know. But just notice those things and notice if that has impacted how you view food and how you talk about your own body and view food. If it does, then that's an indication like maybe you just need to do a little bit of cleanup around social media. Maybe you need to do a little bit of cleanup as to how you talk about yourself. And again, it's not going to make sense in one day, but just keep doing it. That's step number one. Step number two, I would say pay attention when you eat something, right? Do the one mindful meal exercise. And it's going to feel awkward at first. It's going to feel weird. But again, this really isn't even changing the what of your eating. It's just getting at the how of your eating. So sit down with a plate of food. And again, this comes back to the discussion of making time, because when you sit down instead of eating while you're driving your little car, it's going to take more time. So make time to do that. One day a week, one time a week, whatever you can fit in, and just notice how you feel afterwards. If you feel better, if you feel like you've never felt before because you just had a romantic experience with an egg sandwich, then you know that that's something that you could do in the future, right? So that's number two. Number three, whenever you go to eat something, ask yourself, like, what sounds good to me? I think so often, and this is something that we didn't touch on a lot, but it's something that comes up with my personal clients, is we've become so habitual in our food choices, especially when you've been tracking something so methodically and so habitually for so long. We start to just eat our safe foods or our comfort foods out of habit because MyFitnessPal knows what they are. We know how many calories are in them, and it's easy, right? But I even talked to a client earlier today where she had an experience with hot chocolate. So she did this step number 3. She said, what sounds good to me right now? And she sent me a picture. She sent me a picture of hot chocolate. She was like, this sounded good because it's cold outside, and I gave it a try. I was really, really scared and worried because I used to tell myself for so long that hot chocolate was bad, that it had too many calories, it had too much fat, et cetera, et cetera. But she said, what you've taught me, I was able to put that aside and ask myself what I wanted, and I tried it. But then here's the deal. What happened, and I'm going to post this to my story later today because I think it's revolutionary. She was like, Claire, you wouldn't believe what I discovered. She was like, I realized after a couple sips that I don't even like hot chocolate that much. I was just building it up in my brain for years and years. It's something that I loved, but I told myself I could never have it. So she just hadn't tasted it in years, but because she asked herself what sounds good to me, she listened for the honest answer, she acted, she tried it, she was able to figure out something that she's been scared of for years, which is hot chocolate. So that's my third suggestion, is just ask yourself, what do you like? Trust yourself to have some of it, and then come back to suggestion number 2, be a little bit mindful and see if you actually like that food, and then go from there.
It's so powerful. I mean, I think that's honestly the reason why I've never, ever, ever gravitated towards a diet. I've never followed a diet, ever.
Yeah.
It's because I look at a diet and, well, people joke about this all the time. They're like, you're an entrepreneur because you have a really hard time with taking instruction from people. You know what I mean? You always have been the type of person that it's you want to do it your way. And I never really thought about that, but I put the correlation together and I was like, man, that actually makes a lot of sense. People were like, did you have disciplinary issues growing up? And I was like, yeah, actually I did. And then it all kind of started to come full circle, but I love that. I mean, I think that for me, I never, ever, ever wanted to create a negative relationship with food because I saw the negative relationship that my mom had created her whole life. And so I think because of that, that really dictated, my direction and how I thought about food. And I was an athlete, so it was always just fuel your body for performance or whatever. But I love that. I think it's and it's the small things, right? It's the things that some people think are foo-foo, but no, it's not foo-foo. This stuff is real. The relationships that we have with food and everything that's happened to us in our life up to this point, dictates that relationship. And so if we meet somebody, you know, awesome like you, who kind of allows people to take this 10,000 foot view and say like, okay, you know, all of the stuff that I've tried up to this point, it hasn't worked for me. Let me take an approach that's like completely different than anything I've ever seen. And let's just see, like, let's see if this starts to make a more positive relationship. And, you know, it's like the definition of insanity, right? You can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So might as well at least give it a try. So I love that. I think that's amazing. Girl, where can everybody find you? Obviously you have a podcast, Instagram, website. Where's all that stuff up so they can go check you out?
The better question is, where can you not find me? The main places I like to hang out, I love to hang out on Instagram. That's like my catch-all. I think that's everyone's favorite. I love Instagram. I do like themes of the week on my stories of just like education topics, things like that. That's just at Claire Chewning. It's really easy to remember. My podcast is the Yours Truly podcast. I release a new episode every Wednesday. You can find that on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. I'm not fancy enough to have it on Google Play yet. We're getting there. And then the other places I hang out, Twitter, rarely, not really ever. And then the last place is Facebook. You can find me, Yours Truly Nutrition. And I also have a private Facebook community where I do things kind of like this. I do trainings. I post daily. All my clients hang out in there, so you can see what one-on-one coaching looks like. You can kind of get that inside view. And that's totally free and open to anyone who has an interest in what I talk about and wants to be surrounded by a community of support of people who are on a similar journey. So if anyone's listening and you want to join that, reach out to me on one of those platforms that I talked about a second ago, and you can most definitely be a part of it. But thank you so much for having me on today. I enjoyed our little conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, guys, go check her out. I mean, you know, I think a lot of the things that we talked about were very in line with, and I think that, I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of people in like our group is in line in a lot of these things. So I think, you know, as coaches, guys, we're just starting to realize that, like, you know, a lot of these factors really need to be considered. And, you know, this journey is not just about nutrition. It's a lot more than that. So thank you so much for taking the time today. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have to maybe bring you on again and dive into some more. I'm like, every time I do one of these things, I'm like, oh my, like an hour sounds so long, and then it's just done. It's gone. Right?
Yeah, I feel you, but I would love to help out in any way, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let me click stop here.